Mom Who Knows Nada. My name is Brianna, and this is the Mama Knows Nada podcast. We're bringing another dad into the mix this season. This is Brandon, also a retired hospitality professional who's made his way from California to Texas. So he's going to share his dad life and his journey with you. Welcome, Brandon. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm super stoked to share dad perspectives. I said this in another recording, but my husband is like, where the dad's at? Like, no one talks about that transition. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll include some. He was feeling left out, like I was being sexist. So here we go.
Bit, yeah.
No, and it's a good point. Like he said to me, he only had his dad as an example, to go off of. And even though he had a great father, like his dad is like now 80. They had kids a little bit later in life. So what they were doing, when my husband was little was way different than how people are parenting these days. So sharing dad perspectives, I think, is really important. So on that note, how did you feel when you found out you were going to be a dad?
I was ecstatic. And, it was funny. We got into a little fight maybe a few weeks before. And then the night before was a little bit of like a drinking shit show. It was kind of funny. Long story, but that night she wasn't feeling good that next morning, and we both were. I was running a restaurant. She was my lead server. We had left the place we were at. And we were at a new spot, and it was actually a crazy day. We had Real Housewives of Beverly Hills coming in to record that day. And I didn't have any other servers on because I was like, I have to shut down 3/4 of the restaurant, so it'll just be me and her. And she was feeling like shit that whole morning and went out and got a few pregnancy tests. We were like, we'll buy a couple different brands just in case. Because the last time we had done it, it was a few negatives, so we're like, whatever. So we got a few tests, and all of a sudden I didn't hear any noise for a minute. I'm like, you okay in there? And she came running around the corner. I was like, no way. And I was all excited. No. And I was like, great, now I get to go to work. And I'm sitting there all night, just working, doing this Real Housewives of Beverly Hills filming. I'm like, I just want to get out of here and go celebrate. I was all excited. Yeah. I wanted it, she wanted it, and that was kind of how we had, met in a sense in the first place was, the restaurant I came in to be a GM or a consultant at this restaurant, and Sal, actually, who was the chef there. And so I came in, and the first day I was there, I was like, I went up to the owner. I was like, hey, I think I have a problem. He goes, what? And I was like, there's this girl that you have that works here, and I don't ever date staff really, and she's so beautiful. I want to ask this girl out on a date, but I think there's a conflict, so I don't know if I could even consult for you. And way out of my league. I was like, this isn't going to work. And then her and he's like, well, he's like, look, Brandon, he's like, I don't have a problem if you want to date my staff, but he's like, if you want to be close to it, why don't you just take an actual GM job here instead of consulting? And I was like, no, I don't know. We'll see. I'm really enjoying not having to do anything consultant stuff. And then her and I went out on a date that night with him. The three of us went out. And then, I don't know, we were in a relationship 2 days later, got engaged 45 days after that.
Oh, and wow.
Pregnant 6 months after that. And one thing that we both wanted, she was in a relationship for 5 years before me, and she had just gotten out of it a few months before that, and she really wanted kids, and that was what I had wanted too, and, so timing worked out really well.
Dang, that's awesome. Timing is everything. I tell you what, it really is. We underestimate that so much, but it's all about finding the right person at the right time, that you can actually stay in.
It is. I've been through my series of terrible dates and terrible people and everything else in between, so.
I think that comes with working in hospitality though. You have to have really bad experiences with dating. I just feel like it's built into the culture or something.
Kind of date the people in hospitality, at least, you date the people that are, the type of clients that you have at your restaurant. So it's like the place I was running before that was like a dive bar that I helped rebuild in Venice Beach. And I'm like, now the kind of person I dated for 2.5 years. It's like the type of people that would come into a dive bar in Venice Beach.
Hey, I love a good dive bar, okay? Once in a while.
It's a Venice Beach dive bar on top of it all.
Ooh.
So it's like, you kind of know what you're getting into a little bit.
That's great. Yeah. Well, that's a fun story. And this is why you don't date your staff unless you want to get married and have kids.
Back to the trip, I didn't even have a ring when I proposed. We were I had food poisoning the night that I even proposed. I walked outside, threw up, came back into the bar, paid $100 for the bartender for the ring he had on his finger, and proposed to her.
Oh my God.
A couple months later, in the restaurant I was running, had it all set up. It was cute.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
Family there. She's like, why is their family here? I was like, oh, no.
They all just decided to come for dinner. What has been the hardest part of becoming a father?
I think it's learning my balance of work and personal life, but also my patience in trying to figure out how I'm for instance, I work from home the majority of the time. So even from when he was born, it was during COVID, I was working at home. And I'll be sitting there and I'm and she'll wake up, she'll come down, I'll have the baby in the morning, she'll do her thing, get up, do her thing, but I'll take care of the baby till nap time. And then she comes down after his nap and she'll start doing her thing with him. And I'll be like, oh, hey, don't do this or something like that, thinking in my own head, I'm more trying to tell her oh, hey, I had him today, since I've had him this morning, he, maybe I'm telling her oh, he was a little fussy, don't do this. But I have a hard way of communicating it, I think, sometimes to where it doesn't sound like I'm telling her how to parent, as opposed to just being giving her my information. So I think it's learning that communication between each other.
I think that also comes with hospitality. I'm very direct and specific. And I have a mom, I've always had a mom tone, before I was even a mom, because it's you have to, when you have a team of 30 people or 20 people or whatever it is, you're operating every day. If you're not direct, specific and succinct, you're screwed. The ship is going down, And my husband would be like, what is your problem? Why are you being so mean? I was like, I'm just talking to you.
I'm the same way. I'm
sorry.
No, I'm just letting you know. And it's no, you're telling me. And I'm like, shit. So that's the thing I think I really work on a lot.
I'm glad I'm not the only one, because I was I work so hard at it. I don't know about you, but I work so hard at it, and it's still it's I'm working at it or something.
No, yeah. I swear I'm
great.
very I'll even before I'm about to say it, okay, I'm gonna replay this in my head. Okay, let me adjust the time. Let me do this. And then it comes out, and I'm nope, still shit.
Still sucks. I still suck. Whatever. Work in progress.
This conversation was gonna start. I should have just let her bring it up, and then I could have been oh yeah, this is what he had today.
That's amazing. Is there anything that's been particularly easy about fatherhood so far?
You know what? I think I didn't know if I would be able to give the amount of love that I think I received from my parents. And I didn't know that I was capable of giving that emotion or not. And I feel that just comes so easily. I love hanging out with this kid. Like I said, he's kind of been my buddy every day while I'm at work, while I'm working. He sits in the high chair next to me. I'm just sitting away, typing away, working, making calls, doing this, doing that. And he's right there. And, there's sometimes where I'll be on the phone with the client and it's Coco Melon in the background. And, hopefully my noise canceling headphones are working well enough that nobody hears it. And then all of a sudden you'll just hear Dad, yay. And I'm oh, I think I'll call this call. But yeah, no, I think just I thought I wasn't going to be as good of a dad as I was in terms of that emotion and emotional bond, and it came really easily.
So when you first held your son, delivered all that stuff, what was that first response when you held him?
I was just like, oh my God. I was like, this is amazing. It was. I wasn't terrified. I was like so ready. And it was a rough birth too. So it was like, she was in 21 hours of active labor basically. And then flipped to an emergency C-section. And then the 2 weeks before too, like 36, 37 weeks, he flipped, went in, had a version done. And as we were walking so we delivered at Cedars, and the doctor's office was across the street. So we just like walked over to Cedars, did it. I'm walking back over to the doctor's office. By the time we got back to the doctor's office, he had flipped back again. Went back out.
So
went back over again. Did another version the same day.
Dang.
He was in the right direction, but his head he was like, by the time she delivered, his head was this way and we needed here. And so, yeah, we ended up going into emergency C-section, but it was crazy because I wasn't even supposed to like be able to be in the hospital because the COVID rules, they weren't even allowing dads like in the delivery room or anything. And
that was in California, right? At the time too? Yeah.
Yeah, it was April of 2020. So it was like 2 months into COVID, basically. And it was funny. They kept telling her, like, oh, you need to keep your mask on. The doctor was like, who gives a fuck about a mask?
She's in labor. She can barely breathe. Come on.
Give her another.
Give her some oxygen if you want her to have a mask.
2 epidurals. It was nuts.
Oof, that sucks.
And, like,
I had one epidural. It was awful.
I think it was weirder too because she didn't get to hold the baby right away because she had her second epidural. Like she, held him for a few seconds and that was it. They had to clean her up. They're like, okay, Dad, you go this way. And I'm like, wait, I'm leaving her in here now? Like, I need to be with my wife. And they're like, no, you need to be with your baby because we also can't have babies in like the room where they have like all the babies in there, whatever you call it, the nursery.
Yeah.
Didn't have that during COVID.
Dang.
So they were like, you need to go to the room and be with the baby. And I was like, what? By myself? And they're like, I was like, when does she come in? And they're like, oh, probably an hour or two. I was like, okay. Got it. All right. Okay, cool. Just tell me what to do. I'm ready to go.
That does not sound like fun at all, honestly.
I think it almost helped though, because it was just like I didn't have that excuse of being like, oh yeah, she's going to hold him and I'll watch her and figure out what to do kind of thing. I was just like, I had to react.
Yeah, no. Good. Way to dive in.
And I'm like sitting in the chair holding the baby. And she's like, I think she had this like tear coming down her eye and she was smiling too because she was like, oh shit. Like, I was like, oh, I looked at her too and I remember saying like, I know this looks like it's super easy for me, but I'm like fucking shitting bricks. So, I was like, when it's your turn, I got you.
Right. What has been most surprising so far?
Food. I never knew how crazy food was going to be. Like, I never knew how crazy it was switching from like the difference even just between like formula and breast milk and then like different, like so when to know to switch from like purees from like a 1 to a 2 to a 3 to this size to like going from like watching him eating a granola bar to now like eating like those Cheeto puff things and stuff like that. And like, I'm like sitting there watching him like, oh my God, how is he not choking on that? I'm like, and I just sit there and stare at him. I'm like, please don't choke. And now he's got like a full mouth of teeth too. And I'm like, oh God, like this kid eats like crazy now.
Isn't that funny?
He doesn't look like he's like heavy, but
yeah,
this morning, whenever he gets up in the next 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so, like, end up eating 2 purees, a breakfast burrito, granola bar, a bottle.
Dang.
This, that, and then it's like, okay, nap time. And I'm like, how do you eat so much?
He's growing,
Yeah.
Dad.
And well, I think that's
boy.
also the surprising thing is that, like, I mean, I'm 5'11", Morgan's 5'10".
Oh, wow. She's
I'm
tall.
adopted, so I truly don't know, like, the height genes on my side. My mom's not really tall. Her mom's like 5'6". Her dad was tall. He was like a little over 6 foot. But the kid is in the 100th percentile for height.
Sounds like it.
From where? Where are you getting all this height from?
Right? No, it's interesting you say that. My husband's adopted too, and we are like, we don't know how this is gonna turn out.
You really don't. Like, I was adopted at birth, but it's like I have no clue like how he's going to turn out.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you could say that even if you knew like your biological
Yeah.
parents, but like it's a crapshoot no matter what. But it's even more interesting.
well, it is. It's
poker
like,
game,
what's
you
going to
know?
pop up?
Yeah. Oh man, I was gonna ask. Hold on. I was gonna ask something that's not on there. Have you ever thought about, or have you? You don't have to answer this because it's totally off the cuff. Have you ever thought about like doing like your DNA tests and stuff like that, or is that not something you're interested in?
I have thought about it. I haven't done it yet. I don't think I would have a problem doing it. Like, when you and I were both working, or when you were when you were at Charleston, and
Oh,
it's
the days.
3 other name changes, 2 other. What did you guys go through? 2 iterations?
I don't know. I was only for 2 of them,
Yeah.
so I think that's been 3 at least.
And I was at Wilshire. My birth mother had tried to come in contact with me. And,
Oh shit!
I mean, I'll say this. I wasn't ready at the time for it, but also the way it was done was really fucking terrible. She had, like, seen some article that was written from, like, Zagat and, like, the 30 under 30 list that I was on. And she had seen this article, and I talked something about, like, adoption in there, and she put 2 and 2 together from, like, the date I was born and there, and, like, adoption, and where I said I was born, and figured out, you know, okay, how many other kids could have been adopted on this day from this hospital, you know, with this similar familial background, and sent me an email, just, hi, this is your mother, I would like to get to know you, and I was like, my mother? My mom's at home, you know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I was like, well, you know, like, if you understand that you're not my mother, but you're my birth mother, I could totally be open to having this conversation with you. And she had said, no, I'm your mother. And I wrote, well, I'm not your son. Like,
Fair.
get out of my life.
Yeah, who
Yeah,
raised you?
like-
You know, come on, lady, get it together.
You know, being a warm belly is a little bit different than being a mother, you know?
Amen to that.
It's
That's a really good statement.
It takes somebody to raise you, you know? Whether or not they do a good job, like, that's still your mom, the person that raised them.
Another good and fair statement.
Like,
I just asked that my husband and I have talked about like doing our DNA test, and we haven't for several reasons. But one of them is like he has said like, well, it'd be awkward to see who I'm related to by blood, you know.
that
And he's
too.
like, he's like, I don't know about I think he tried at one point in time years ago to reach out to his biological mother who wanted nothing to do with him, but he has no idea like who his biological father would be. And after that, he was like, you know what? I'm cool.
Yeah.
Like, I've got a good life. I had great parents. Like, my mom and dad are amazing. And I'm a firm believer in that, you know, exactly what you said. Like, just because somebody birthed you doesn't make them your parent, you know?
Sure.
Like, who grows you? Who raises you? Who's there for, you know, who's wiping your butt? Like, literally. So, just an interesting cut. I just wanted to go down that rabbit hole with you for a second.
you know, if me or him ever had a, like, medical emergency going on, I would totally go and do it and pay for rush results if that's what I needed,
Yeah.
because so just to know like what needed to be done, you know.
Yeah,
But
totally.
other than that, I see like no. I don't know. I don't think I like care enough to know that I'm Eastern European or something like that, you know, which is what everybody ends up coming out as.
Yeah. A big old mutt.
Like, oh, cool. Yeah.
Fair.
All these areas. Great. That sounds good. You know, but it's like, yeah, it's like, do I need this DNA test to know that I'm like balding on the left side of my head? Like, no, I get it.
And I can see that.
The reason I got this hat on.
So my husband, funny that you say like how big your son is, like he's 6'4" and he just started like balding like right in the center of his head. But like nobody can see it because he's 6'4",
right.
you know. But sometimes like if he's like picking up our son or like wrestling with him, our son will be like, "Daddy, where'd your hair go?" And he's like, "The wind blew it away."
So funny.
So funny. Kids, I swear.
So, like, you can see it a little bit here. Like, it's receding a bit. And it's funny. Like, I said to my wife the other day, I was like, it's so funny. I was like, this poor kid's got the same hairline as me. I just see it growing in. Wait till you're 30. This hairline's going to suck, dude.
Can't fight it. You can't fight it. Wow. What have you appreciated about being home and being able to watch your son grow?
I think literally that. Like, you know, I was one of the reasons too, which I think COVID in a sense was a blessing for me, was that I was able to step back away from restaurants for the first time in 17 years. You know, I was able to take a step back and sitting there and like, I didn't work for a few months. I had money saved up when the baby was born. So I was going to take a few months off regardless. And once I took it off and I was like, wow, I have zero interest in going back. Like nothing. Just like wasn't there. And so like I took a sales job originally I helped become like part of a sales team of a PPE company that was starting up during COVID. Okay. And, you know, we did a lot of cool things. Like we did custom face masks for like 3/4 of the universities in the entire country.
Dang.
Gloves, wipes, and stuff like that, et cetera, to like sheriff's offices, jails, hospitals, everything.
Awesome.
And then, you know, and now I'm doing real estate, which I love. And it's funny, you know, I'm just like being able to like be home and like, that was one of my biggest concerns was working in restaurants and not, you know, leaving at 9, 10 in the morning, coming home at 3, 4 o'clock at night and never being able to see him. Like, I didn't want to be the dad that just had to like FaceTime in to watch bath time.
Yeah.
So I think that's really like truly has been able to like be with him and watch him grow and do all that stuff. And it was funny, like, you know, the other day she took him, I think they went out for the day. She like went out to her mom's ranch, like, which is like an hour away.
Fun.
Like they had so much fun, but he came home and he was like pissed at me. I was like, what on me for? Like he was in a bad mood with me almost. And he was like, did not want dad, wanted mom only. And he'd done it a couple days in a row. And I think it was like, he was like, wait, I'm now gone from dad, like during the day. And it was so weird for me too, because I was sitting here and I was like, normally like while I'm in between calls or doing things like I'm playing with him or I'm getting him snacks or doing this. And I was like, I'd get off a call and I'd sit there and I go to turn around. I'm like, oh, he's not here. What do I do? And, like, it was just like, it was weird because, you know, because of COVID, it's like everyone's home, you know, we don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And since like the ranch had kind of been fixed up a little bit, so they've been going up there and like, again, we go up on the weekends sometimes. It's fun. But it was so weird because he was like, not like he was mad at me, like that he wasn't around, that I wasn't like there hanging out with him. Yeah. So it was a whole new thing to like try and figure out getting used to.
It's a thing, and I didn't realize it for a while with our kid either, because my husband traveled a lot. Yeah, and he's traveling a lot more now. So we've had like the 2 years of being home when daddy's always home. Daddy does the school run. Daddy does bath time. Daddy reads stories. Daddy's a better storyteller. Like I might be the writer, but like if I have to think off something off the top of my head, that's my husband's like ball game. Like don't ask me to tell you a story about the Octonauts. Like it's not going to happen. But when he comes home from these trips, or like when he's come home in the past, Declan is very ambivalent to him. He's like almost like, how could you leave me? You know, like why weren't you with me? And you know, it's like, it's not your fault. Like your wife wants to take the baby to your your in-laws, like her parent. It's not your fault, but like you get in trouble for it. It's interesting how they like associate that.
Weird. And I was just like, and I couldn't figure out why the first day. I was like, maybe he's just grumpy with me, whatever. Like, he was just in a grumpy mood from like hanging out all day. And then the second day it happened again. I was like, oh, and I said to her, I was like, do you think it's this? She's like, yeah, of course it's that. And I was like, why didn't you say anything to me yesterday? I was sitting there all night last night, like tossing and turning, couldn't sleep, trying to figure out what. And the kid was like so weird. She's like, oh yeah, no, it's just that. And I was like, got it.
Got it.
Cool.
Sounds good. Now I know. What has it been like for you to watch your wife become a mom?
That's been amazing. I love like every second of it. Even from before she, while she was pregnant, like her and I together, it was like always like looking at all these little things. It was like I think that was something that was crazy for me, where it was like, you can't use certain shampoos and like body washes that have like learning about like salicylic acid. Something I never thought I would like even start looking at, but it was like, and why you can't use retinol like cream and stuff like that. It was crazy. But no, like watching her be so caring and like so motherly in that instinct. Like, she has a niece, and it was one thing to watch that, but it's another thing to like watch it with our own kid. And I've really, 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 and it's been like, I think that was another thing too that I didn't think I would expect, like would make me so emotional to watch. And it does, like, there'll be times where like she'll go get him from the nap, and I'll have like the monitor down here, and I'll be working. I'm like, hey, can you go get him from his nap? Like, just bring him down. I'll get him fed, and then, keep doing whatever you were doing. I've got him. But can you bring him down for me? And she'll be like, yeah. And sometimes I don't need her to. I do it because I want to like just watch on the monitor. Like, because I love those moments. Like, you don't get to see it if you're not around for it. Right. So then I'm like sitting there just watching on the monitor and like listening to them play with each other. I'm like, oh, that's the time.
Swoon. Swoon.
She's smiling. She's like, what? I'm like, no, nothing.
You guys are just the best.
I don't know about that until she hears this podcast a little.
We'll keep it between you and I and the rest of the listeners. What prompted your move from California to Texas?
So she was born here originally. Born closer to Houston, and then lived in Austin. And we had talked about it on and off for a while. We had like a little COVID wedding before we moved, which was just like my mom and dad, her mom, sister, niece, a couple of our friends, and then my buddy was like our pastor kind of thing.
Aw, I like that.
And it was cute. We did like a 14-person backyard wedding, and my dad and I perfect. Like hand built the chuppah and all that. It was cool. We had fun with it. It was a really pretty wedding. And that was in November, and we still hadn't made up our mind about anything. We had started talking about it, but it wasn't ever like, oh yeah, we're doing it, and like we were going to announce it to everybody. We hadn't really decided, and then I think it was like maybe the first or second week in December. We moved here January 1st, so it's like the first or second week in December, and we had said,
dang.
Her mom and sister were going to be moving out here, and her mom wanted to move back here. But yeah, her mom and sister and her kid were going to move out here, and we were like, there's not a better time than right now. I work from home. I can work from anywhere. And that was the thing. The company I was working for at the time, like my boss was in New York, and we had a couple people in LA and a couple people in Colorado and somebody in Chicago, another person in Virginia. And it was like, we were all over the place. So it's not as though we were ever going to like move to an office setting.
Gotcha.
So I was like, there's nothing holding me down in terms of like a job. And, you know, we had talked to my parents about it, and they were, you know, sad because they were like, oh, you know, the baby's not going to be here, but they were super excited for us too. They wanted to, you know, like, you know, they wanted to see us go do our thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we packed up like within 2 weeks, and yeah, we drove out here January 1st. We left LA. It took like 2 days because it's a lot with driving with a baby and 2 dogs in a car.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It took 2 days to drive out, or 3 days, 2 nights. It was funny, you know, we got here, and that was my first time I'd ever been in Texas, was when we drove in. I had no clue.
Leap of faith.
Really.
For real.
Like, oh my God, am I going to hate this? Am I going to love it? What's going to happen? You know. I know.
Stay tuned.
And then 2 weeks in, we had this like little mini snowstorm. It wasn't any, I said, it snows in Texas? What? Austin? I looked up. I was like, oh no, it hasn't snowed in like 20 years. Sounds about right. That was the day the movers were showing up.
Of course.
But then, fast forward to like first week of February, we had this nasty snowstorm out here, which Austin wasn't ready for. We had no power and no running water for a week.
That's tough.
Yeah, and that's how I met all my neighbors. I literally went and like my parents like ordered online like a Weber grill and like charcoal briquettes and wood and a bunch of they're like, oh yeah, go pick it up at Lowe's. I'm like, how the fuck am I going to get there? Like I don't have chains on the car. Like I went sliding down the road. What takes me a 3-minute drive took me 27 minutes to get there because I just had to slide the car down the road.
It's not funny, but it's funny.
Yeah, it was funny. Literally, they were out of like firewood, wood. So people were buying 2x4s and like chopping them up. And
yep, sounds about right.
That was how we kept warm. Was like literally 2x4s in the fireplace, taking snow from outside, dumping it into the toilet just to like that. But it was scary because it was like, what are we gonna do for the baby? Like the house couldn't get over like 32 degrees. Like we couldn't keep the house warm enough if we tried. It was 30 plus degrees maybe in the house, and it was like -2 outside for a few days. It was.
That's brutal.
It was crazy, and finally the power turned back on. We were much more prepared this year for it in case it happens. We had like, I don't know, a cord of wood, which if you don't know how much that is, it's like 300 logs of firewood in the garage. I have extra 2x4s that are still chopped up from last year just in case.
Just in case, you never know.
Came out here in, I think it was like early December. They bought us like, I think like 6 gallons of water, and then like a bunch of like 30 packs from Costco of bottled water.
Totally. You got to,
logs. Man. We bought like everything. So we were like, if it happens again this year and these guys aren't prepared, at least we are.
Yeah, for real. No, that's crazy. I didn't realize the storm was that bad. I mean, because you hear about it, but like, you know, I'm over here in Florida doing my thing.
Exactly. It was crazy. And it was like 7 days, no water, no power.
Oh, man.
And I was just sitting outside like, you know, her mom and sister and her niece were all here too because we were like, well, it's better if all of us are in one place. Plus, their place, they live in the same complex as us, but we have a townhouse and they have an apartment. Their place flooded.
Oof.
So they were all here. So they were here too. And I was like, okay, you guys figure out in here. I'm just going to cook food and keep everybody warm. And I was like, outside and met all the neighbors, and we're all drinking whiskey outside and cooking. You know, I was the only person that had
that's how you stay warm.
Something warm to cook food in. So like everybody was hanging out in front of our yard, cooking their food on there.
Dang, I mean that's a good way to build community.
Yeah, that's been my Austin experience. But no, I love it out there. It's calm, it's relaxing. I enjoy it out there.
That's awesome. I mean,
so.
You were like, what did we do?
I felt like I needed to sleep for like a week after that.
No, for real. So when it comes to staying true, the theme of like my podcast series this season, how do you do that for yourself and your family?
I think just always remembering what got me to this point and like what, like, you know, Morgan and I, we talk about it all the time, like, you know, we always want him to see like the foundation of morals that like our relationship was brought up in. You know, it was very like honest, very true, very, you know, everything. Like, you know, we and her and I are both very passionate, I guess is the good word for it when it comes to like our conversations.
Understood.
Yeah. We always try to like make sure that, you know, he, you know, it's like, you know, life's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies, but we always want to make sure it is for him. And so we'll always do like anything for that. And I think just staying true to myself and like, you know, I've always said like, since he's been born at least, I haven't compromised at all in terms of the fact that like work will never overrun my family time. And
that's a good one.
You know, once again, I think that's one of the reasons why I'm not doing restaurants anymore. But, you know, it was like we were supposed to go have like this family outing last weekend, and I had a listing going live for real estate. And I didn't want to ruin that at the same time. So I was like, hey, why don't you guys come with me? It's like an hour away because I was like an hour and 30 minutes away this house because I was doing it as like a favor to somebody. So I was like, why don't you guys come with me? We'll go up there and, you know, we'll drive up there. We'll do this thing for, you know, a couple hours and then we'll go have like family day for the rest of the day. Because I wanted to make sure that like I wasn't abandoning family day. You know?
Right.
And I didn't want to make it to where it was like, oh, let's change the plans and go out later because you know what happens when that happens. Like, you'll take a weird nap or something's going to happen while I'm not going. And then, you know, the whole day I'm just going to be sitting there going, well, that sucked. Yeah. So I was like, no, like, let's go. Like, kept the energy level high, made it sound so much fun. We went and we ended up having like family day afterwards, which is great. But yeah, I think it's just really been making sure I like never compromise in terms of what her and I both want out of life and what her and I both want for him. You know, we're very good about never compromising for that. Like, I'll open another credit card if I had to get like, you know, get him something before I worried about anything else.
Kids, man. They really do know how to stretch a bank account.
But for a good knowledgeable tip, Goodwill's got great cards.
You know, I wish there was one closer to me. I always forget about that stuff. I also don't buy him a lot of toys, like at all, because he doesn't play with them. I go to like we have a community gym, and he plays with the toys there. He doesn't play with the toys at home.
Yeah, no, he's got like. It's funny too. He has like a little kitchen thing that he loves playing with. Yeah. I'm like, oh god, PTSD.
Interesting.
Don't work in the kitchen. Don't work in the kitchen. Don't work in the kitchen.
Oh, that's pretty funny, actually. It's really interesting what they gravitate towards. My son has been like obsessed with Celtic dancing for a really long time. Like I said, my husband was adopted. He was born in Scotland and raised in England. And my heritage is very Celtic, Irish, and Italian as well. So it's interesting that this kid is just like going crazy when like Irish music comes on and he like taps around like he's Michael Flatley. And I like don't know what to do about it. Because I like want to put my head through a window because I liked Irish music until now. Now I'm just like, can we turn that off? You know, like stop, no more.
That's so funny.
So I feel you on that. I mean, not PTSD, but like, we'll see. When it comes to you and your wife, how do you guys ensure that you make time for your partnership?
You know, I think just having a good support system, you know, we can always lean on her mom who lives like I said, really close by. You know, like yesterday we went out with another couple that we had met, like, you know, right before Christmas time with their baby. And we took the kids and then we went to this like little brewery at 5:00 yesterday, hung out for a couple hours. And then we came back and it was like, you know, Morgan and I hadn't been able to really like go out since probably like before Christmas, just because like her mom or her sister was sick and she didn't have COVID, but she was sick. Still. And so we were like, and her mom lives with her sister. So we were kind of like, oh, we don't want to go run any of that, da, da, da. So we've been very, we're probably more overcautious than most, but, the kid, we just really, like, he's never had a cold even since he's been born. Like, he's never had even, like, the sniffles. So we're, like, made it this far, like, we're going to keep taking it seriously if we need to. But then last night, so yeah, we came back and we called her. We're like, hey, like, you want to come watch him, for a couple hours, like, just put him down in bed and we'll be home by like 10. And we went out and like had dinner last night. And it was really nice. And, like when my parents come out, it's cool. They'll watch him, cause they have, seen him in a few weeks or a couple months.
Totally.
It's one thing to see them on FaceTime, but when they're in person, they're like, yeah, you guys go have fun.
They're not coming to see you anymore. You are not the priority.
Exactly. Right. And her mom is the same way, she wants to hang out with him. So it's like that, like, hey, like she'll text us like, hey, like, you want me to come over and watch the baby tonight? We're like, see you later. Well,
bye.
And even sometimes, we don't always go out. Sometimes it's just like going upstairs just to like hang out, just the two of us, and just like watch a movie and relax.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we go to a movie theater where both of us, chances are, at least one of us is going to try and take a nap, and it's probably true. Every time we've gone to a movie, like since the baby's been born, she'll be like, oh, let's go see this movie. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. 20 minutes in. And then I'll wake up towards the end, I'm like, wow, the movie was really good. She's like, you didn't even see it.
That definitely happened with me and my husband. I fell asleep though, and it was like we were living in Baltimore at the time, and it was one of the theaters that you can like have food and drinks in, right? So I had like one like martini, which I like never drink liquor anymore because I can't, and I was like that. I was already overly exhausted. I had my one drink. I was done. He's like, I can't believe we spent all that money, and then he was like, actually, it was money well spent.
No, it was right. It totally is.
It's so funny how that happens. Like, we live in like Northeast Florida, like outside Jacksonville.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. We love it. It's amazing. We have to worry about hurricanes periodically, not so much. Like, it just got down to like 30 some degrees this week. That's the first time. Usually that happens in like December, so this is late. But yeah, we got a lot of first world problems with going to the beach on Christmas Day and stuff like that. Not to brag. That's amazing. What would you like new dads or soon to be dads to know?
Trust your instincts a little more than you think you should. I think that was one thing where I was like, I had read a couple books, and there's just so much information.
So much information.
And so much bad shit.
I also feel like so much generality is like nothing like specific, like.
But I think sometimes like they have to talk that way because it's like what happened to one dad didn't happen to the other. Or, like what happened to this kid didn't happen to that one. It's like, you get that. Yeah, you're right. There is a lot of generalities. It is like, just trust your gut instinct a little bit more. And I think make sure that at the end of the day, take care of your relationship as well as your kid at the same time. I know it's hard. In the beginning, I was like so focused on him that I didn't notice that I was letting other things go by. And like something as little as like just going and like giving the foot rub once in a while, like even now, like I still like, it'll be like towards the end of the night and we're like going to bed and, I try and make it to where your partner doesn't have to ask you. Just try and know better in your head.
I like that. I'm gonna cut that out for my husband.
He's gonna leave this clip playing in his phone.
I know. Because honestly, we've had so many discussions about, and I said this in another podcast with another dad, but it's like when someone finds out they're pregnant, when a woman finds out they're pregnant, everything changes in that moment. You know, like for my husband, it took like a couple years post baby for him to be like, things really changed for him, you know, like, and a lot of that was, he's going to hate me for saying this, is like me demanding it as well, you know, because by default, he's doing what he knows best. And that's how to be a provider. And he doesn't know how to be, you know, I don't want to say support, because he does, but he didn't know how to be present for a young baby. And his at the time we weren't married, so his partner after a baby, and he just worked his ass off, which was great because he had 2 promotions and all this other crap and all that. But also, like, I needed him to like take over sometimes, and he couldn't take over. So I think that from what you're saying is that make sure your partner doesn't have to ask, is like, you got to remember, we carried that thing for 40 weeks plus or minus, you know, like everything about our lives changed, you know, like doesn't matter like what you were into before, if you drink alcohol, if you like sushi, like if you like to work out, like something about our everyday life changed in a moment. And the argument, like I said to my husband, was like, you didn't change anything. So I don't feel like I'm wrong for wanting you to show up for me sometimes, because I'm not penalizing you for being a man, but don't penalize me for being the woman, you know? Like, let's be fair.
and still, you know, I still have to remind myself of that, where it's like, you know, yeah, my life changed, but your life changed. You know, mine, I didn't go through the bodily change, you know?
Yeah, totally.
All that, you know, and I still have to remind myself of that, you know, sometimes where it's like, I want to be like, can't you do it? And it's like, oh, no, don't say that. You know, like I do, I have to remind myself to always make sure like of that. And I am like, I can be guilty of it once in a while. And it's like, I
think we all are.
Have to remember, like, you know, be sensitive to that stuff, because you don't think about it in the moment. You're thinking about the kid only or something like that. And it's like, you got to remember to think about
everybody. Yeah. And it is hard. And to be fair, my husband's like really good. Like he's been traveling a lot, like I said. And so when he's home, he does the school run, and he does like, he saves me that hour every day, you know, so I can do this, you know? So there's a balance, but like when he's gone and you're like operating as a single parent, it's not easy, you know, even if it's for a day or like a month, it's not easy. So anyway, that was a very long anecdote to be like, thank you for saying that. What was the most useless information or recommendation you've received about becoming a parent?
So much. Why one bottle is better than the other, like, you know, like why this nipple on this bottle is better than the other, why you should use this brand of diapers over this, or, you know, holding a baby a certain way when you feed him is going to make him less colicky or something, you know. There was so much in the beginning, like, I mean, I think I'd have to like sit here and write a notebook to like actually do it. So, you know, just like even like those parents were like, you know, like you have friends that just have kids and like, oh my God, you know, do this, do this, do this, do that. And you're like, what? Like, I get that might have worked for your kid, but like that ain't working for mine. Just knowing, like, you know, kind of like what you said before was that there's so much generalities out there that like, no, you know, read everything you want and then throw it out the window and remind yourself that it's your own kid, because none of it's going to match up.
I love that.
Like, I'm lactose intolerant, as so is Morgan, but like the baby's not. So it was like, we were so nervous about that, and I was like, well, he's fine.
Crazy, huh?
It's interesting. Or like,
it is interesting.
One of the things I have to remember all the time. So like, I'm allergic to chickpeas. There's this one puree that has chickpeas in it, and I always forget what he's eating, and I'll go and touch it, and I'm like immediately breaking out. Like it was a couple months ago, and I have like an EpiPen when I need it.
Oh my gosh, that sucks.
He had his puree, and he was like, Dad, you know, handing it to me to like fold it up so he could like push more of it up. it wasn't coming up. So I didn't realize it was out, and I went like sucked it real quick to like, get it to move. Because there's like something, I think he had like a piece of his cookie stuck in it. I was like, oh, yummy. Thank God I just got a bite of that. But immediately I was like, and like had to like EpiPen myself because I was
oh my gosh,
swelling up. So that's always fun.
That does not sound fun at all. Now, do you take him to get tested for any allergies just in case there's something like
we haven't
genetic?
Yet.
Okay.
And it's funny, I was never allergic to chickpeas.
You developed an allergy?
Yeah, very late in life,
Interesting.
like maybe a few years ago. So when I was running this bar in Venice, I was like chef and GM, and I had made these veggie patties. They're made from chickpeas. And when I was testing the recipe, I was fine, never had a problem. And then we got to the point where we were selling like so many of these veggie burgers every day that I would go through like 100 pounds of chickpeas in a week making these veggie patties. And all of a sudden, like one day, my throat's like closed up. And we had an EpiPen, and I shot it in because I was like, obviously something weird's going on. I'm having like a bad allergic reaction. Went to the doctor the next day and got tested, and he was like, yeah, you're allergic to chickpeas. I was like, but I haven't been before. And he's like, have you like been consuming more of them lately? I was like, well, I'm like testing the batter all the time because we're eating, because I'm cooking more. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, no, you like literally gave yourself an allergy. I was like,
that is a good tip for people to know. You can give yourself an allergy. Oh my gosh. Is there anything you wish you would have been told about fatherhood other than you can give yourself an allergy?
I wish I would have been told, I think, more about how fun it was going to be and less about everyone's dramatics of it. I think everybody tends to talk about the bad things. And you totally do. And maybe in a way it worked for me that everyone talked about not bad things, but the gross things, the this things, the that things. And I'm like,
yeah.
Everybody just talks about how fucking awesome it is.
Yeah.
And I really like it.
It's
awesome. And I love it. There's not a moment I don't love about it, even when I'm changing the nastiest diaper, I'm still I still love it. It's gross,
the nastiest diaper.
Yeah, everyone just and maybe, like I said, maybe it worked in my favor that happened, that everyone talked about that, because it was, all of a sudden it was like, hey, yeah, there's all that, but it's still fun. It's still awesome.
Yeah.
And I think what also helped me too was, one of my best friends since 5th, 6th grade, him and his wife got pregnant right around the same time that we did. And
fun.
So he had twins, and they were born about a week after Carson was born, which was cool. Him and I have kind of going through our different layers in life, and then we became parents at the same time. And
that's awesome.
It was cool. It made it really fun in that aspect. Him and I are always bouncing things off each other, and he's a cop in LA. And former military, and it's funny, we're always just texting each other all the time, and I'm like, has yours done this yet? And he's like, yeah. Has yours done this yet? It's cool to see that, and to be able to see how we've evolved since then.
Totally. And it's good to have that camaraderie, someone to bounce it off of.
Yeah, it is. It's fun, and I've enjoyed seeing him change into a father just as much as I think he's enjoyed seeing me as well. It's gives you that little extra thing where it's did we ever see each other being parents like this?
I've had this conversation too.
I'm
what?
You just have a third?
3's a lot.
I'm why is it 3?
I'm right there with you.
We're debating about number 2, and we are consistently debating about number 2 because we're number 1's been so good. How do we want to go to number 2? That's the one piece of advice I think that I always hear that's weird, where it's if number 1's good, number 2's going to suck. I'm oh man,
it's a crapshoot, isn't it?
I'm what if it does suck? Like, what if number 2 isn't as cool or is more of a mess, you know?
I mean, I'm the third, so I always like to say my parents took 3 times to get it right.
Well, that's true. I don't know the rest of your siblings, but I'll agree with that.
Well, they kind of, no, I'm just kidding. I'd like to say they suck, but they're cool in their own ways, I guess. I'll be politically correct. Is there any unsolicited advice that you have for new parents?
Take a step back and enjoy it. It goes, you know, and I know everybody, it's like so cliche when everyone goes, oh, it goes so fast, but like it does. It goes by so fast. Like, take the time to like watch the little things and just enjoy it. Like, you know, whatever mood you're in, whatever is going on, like just take a step back and like watch the baby. I promise you will feel so much better.
I like that. I mean, I've had to do that this week, to be honest, and kind of piggyback on the last thing you said about, like, no one talks about how great it is. Like, my kid is so funny. Like, the Irish dancing. And then today, like, he takes swim lessons. It's Florida. Like, you got to learn how to swim, okay? So we just got his fins for the pool after, like, 3 months of back order. And he's walking around the house in these stupid, like, swimming fins. Like, Mommy, are these my new shoes? And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you're a weirdo. But it's so funny because he gets it. Like, he knows it's a joke. He knows he's being funny. And, like, we always tell him we're going to put his pink toes in the oven. And obviously, we're not going to put our kid in the oven. It's just a funny thing. You know, it's because we're like, oh, you're so delicious. We just want to eat you up, right? So I think that's glorious. Like, I think I struggle with that. So it's always good to have other people remind me, like, chill out, like, laugh. It's okay.
Like, trust me, I do too. Sometimes my wife has to tell me, she's like, she'll like hit me, like, watch. I'm like, oh, baby.
Pay attention, Daddy. Well, that's awesome, Brandon. Thank you so much for spending part of your morning with us. We appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having
us. That's awesome. Oh, totally. We need more dad lives on there so that we also remember that sometimes dads don't know either. Or maybe they do know. So maybe we need to listen to them.
It's all the, you know, starring cast of moms that get us to where we need to be.
We're really good reinforcers, I've noticed. I'm the mom who knows that. My name is Brianna. That's Brandon. Thank you so much for being here. And until next time, people, have fun learning all the things you didn't know you needed to know.